So last time, I'm going to say it again. Welcome to the Job Order Contractor Outreach presentation from California State University Office of the Chancellor. Today is, of course, March 1st, 2023. So here is a look at our agenda. So let's get started. I'm Jeremy Gummeljak. I'm a system-wide construction manager here at CSU, and I will let our JOC administrator, Gordian, introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Lou Tickmeyer. I'm the regional director in charge of all of higher education for the state of California for Gordian.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cynthia Orozco. I'm the senior account manager for higher education.
Thank you, Lou, and thank you, Cynthia. So taking a quick look at our agenda, we'll review how CSU bids and completes JOC projects on our 23 campuses. So speaking of our 23 campuses, here are outstanding campuses of the CSU. So this is a map showing them all. We're the largest public university system in the country. CSU has almost 500,000 students. Just curious, you can actually type in the chat if you want. How many CSU graduates do we have in the room right now? I know I went to a CSU. Anybody else? Great. Great. I'm seeing some great responses about that. CSUN, great. Long Beach. I love Long Beach. CSUN, San Jose State. That's great news. That's great news. So basically, when you start talking to people, about 1 in 10 employees are CSU graduates. So let's kind of zoom into how projects are completed at CSU. So the department that I'm in is called Capital Planning, Design, and Construction, or CPDC. We have multiple contract delivery methods, including JOC. We currently have over 160 projects in construction at our 23 campuses, valued at over $2 billion. That's right, $2 billion. So I'm going to put I'll put our link in the chat here about CPDC. So if you want to learn more about CSU and more than JOC, you can actually go to this website and learn more. So let's zoom into phase 1 of JOC at CSU. So what is JOC? Well, no, it's not the star quarterback at Fresno State. But don't. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Cynthia.
I like it.
Thank you. JOC is an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity process, or an IDIQ. JOC enables contractors to complete a substantial number of individual projects with one single bid. These tasks are competitively bid on preset prices. So there are several projects that can be completed under JOC. Our statute states that JOC projects must be for repair, renovation, modification, and other repetitive work. I'm going to say it one more time because it's extremely important. For repair, renovation, modifications, and other repetitive work, which is proposed by our unit prices. There are several projects that can be completed under JOC. Our statute states that JOC projects, like I said, they must be repair, renovation, modification. I put it again, so just to make sure you guys know that. So I'll hand it over to Gordian right now to explain how JOC contracts work at the CSU.
Thanks, Jeremy. So think of it basically as an umbrella. If you're standing under umbrella, you're bidding out on one agreement, and under that agreement, you're standing. You have a bunch of people standing under umbrella, right? And that's your individual job orders. You're able to complete a substantial amount of work under one single bid. The owner will advertise that bid. You as a contractor will submit your bid, and then the owner will award that umbrella agreement. The campus is basically allowed to say, we know we have about this much volume of work that we need to get done. We don't know what the individual job orders are. We just know that it is maintenance work, repetitive work, right? And then you get awarded that agreement under which, you get assigned the work after that. Next slide, please. So once you guys are awarded, the process is pretty much straightforward. It's just a delegation of work, really. There's no secondary bidding process. All it is the campus assigning you work. If you walk a job, it's because the job is most likely going to go to you, unless there's some sort of differences that happen. What will happen is, regardless of whether it's a parent job order or what we call a supplemental, but you may know as a change order, is it's the same process for either of those. And so what will happen is your project manager is going to reach out to you and say, hey, Mr. Contractor, hey, Mrs. Contractor, we have a job that needs to be walked. When are you available to come out? You guys will have your joint scope meeting. At your joint scope meeting is really your opportunity to shine as a contractor and bring your knowledge, bring your subs knowledge, and say, this is where we think also there might be added value in the scope. You and the campus both come to an agreement on the scope at that point. After which the campus will go back to their desk and say, all right, we've agreed upon the scope. Both I and the contractor are fully in agreement for this. Let's issue out a formal request for proposal. This is basically now the campus saying, okay, the work is yours. Once you get that request for proposal, you'll go into our pre-price catalog that Jeremy mentioned. Everything is pre-priced under our CTC.
Any PA or anything?
And sorry, I think someone's unmuted there. So anyway, basically what will happen is you will price that out of our pre-price catalog, and this is where your bid comes into play. You have bid an adjustment factor. That factor gets applied to our bare cost of construction in our CTC. So you'll build out your price proposal. After that price proposal gets submitted to the campus, there's going to be some review, right? The difference is with JOC, because everything is pre-priced, it's not really a negotiation, rather a comparison to ensure that the price proposal matches the scope of work that you guys agreed upon. Do they correlate? Is everything in synchronization? Do the quantities match up? Do the tasks match up to what the scope is pertaining to? Once you guys are in agreement with that, the campus will go back and route internally their paperwork to say, all right, let's get authorization on this to execute. That's their JOA. Once they get their internal signatures in place, they will issue out to you a notice to proceed on that job and construction can begin. As I mentioned, this is the same process, whether it's a parent job order or a supplemental. Now, what I'll say is, again, it's the same exact process. And because so there is no secondary bidding. I can't say that enough. Once you walk a job, the job is yours. Next slide, please. The benefits behind it really is we're trying to simplify the procurement process because there is no secondary bidding. Once you get awarded the contract, they're just delegating you work. There isn't any need for, realistically, there should never be another contractor on the job walk with you unless it's your sub that you brought on. Where the benefits of this is we're trying to provide responsive work. We're trying to improve the quality of work, right? Because there's no competition there here and after. It really does help increase local subcontractor participation. With Cal State, there are DBBE requirements and SBE requirements, which we'll get into in a little bit. But the main thing is really here, it helps you develop out your partnership with the university. And just so you know, volume is driven by performance. These contracts have a zero minimum on them, but there is the opportunity for a substantial amount of work. There's a reason why the campuses are going out for these bids, right? The idea is to reduce the risk for you and increase the transparency because everything is based out of a pre-priced catalog. It really does help eliminate that need for pricing negotiations. And just so you guys know, there is no shelf life on each of our job orders. So as long as you have an active contract in place, let's say for some reason you've walked a job and the job has stalled out, right? Well, it could be because of time constraint, right? Our window was only during spring break, or maybe it's budgetary reasons, the funding dried up and so we don't have that available to us anymore. As long as you have an active agreement in place with Cal State, which is typically 365 days, then you always have the opportunity to come back to that job and it'll still be out of that same price catalog. So it really has no impact. So that also helps you build that relationship with the campus, right? Say, hey, we walked this job a few months ago. What are your thoughts? Do we think that it's going to come back around? There's a lot of opportunity for growth. The idea is that the JOC process allows for a higher percent of projects to be delivered on time and within budget. So what's our role as Gordian in all of this? We work two-part. We work with the campus, but we also work with you as the contractor. With the campus, obviously, and for both of you guys, we furnish the JOC procurement software, right? So you guys are using our platform to go ahead and go in and not only get your CTC, but build out your price proposals, track your milestones, all of that fun stuff. But something else is that we do provide JOC training, not just when you guys go through the pre-bid process, not just when you guys are first awarded the contract, but through the life cycle of your contract. You get that support from us year round. So that if for whatever reason you say, you know what, I'm just not getting the hang of this, like the CTC is a bit overwhelming or the process is a bit overwhelming, we're here to help guide you through that. That's part of our role, and that's part of the partnership that you get with working with Cal State. We obviously do help with technical support. So for whatever glitches you might be having that day, absolutely, we're here to help with that. On the Cal State side, we do also help them with their operational support, their program oversight, as well as in some cases, even the JOC process management. So you'll get very acquainted with our team, our account managers on a day-to-day basis, depending on the campus. All of this to say, we're here to help both sides of the house. Awesome. So as I mentioned, you guys do get to use our platform, right? It is our internet-based software that is provided with your contract at no cost to you. This is where you guys are going to be building out your price proposals and reviewing those. Of course, we are here to help provide ongoing training and as needed for new hires as well. If you get someone new on your team, take advantage of it. Invite the whole gang and have everybody go through training again. We're also here to help with troubleshooting and subcontractor tracking. We do help monitor that as well to make sure that you guys are set up for success. You guys are meeting your DVPE requirements. Make sure that you guys are staying up to date with all of your licensings, all of that fun stuff. We help through the life cycle of the contract.
Cynthia,
All right, and I'll hand it off.
thank you so much, Cynthia.
Sure.
So let's move into the bidding phase for JOC. So since 1999, CSU has completed over $900 million of JOC projects, and almost every campus runs a JOC program with a wide variety of disciplines and scope. So you can see actually some of the sample projects that we have here, although I get calls from campuses all the time needing new parking lots paved, curb and gutter work. We've got a bunch of different work on all 23 campuses. So this is how we split the CSU campuses up into a northern and southern region. So you most likely have a CSU campus in your own backyard. Please be advised that Cal Poly Humboldt is not included in the regional contracts. They have their own JOC contracts. So if you are in far northern California, please reach out to them. They do their own JOC procurements as well. So all the contracts are posted on Planet Bids. Some of our campuses have their own JOC contracts, which are focused solely for their own use. For example, Fresno State, they have their own JOC contractors to do projects specifically there. But they're most likely can be found on Planet Bids. I'll drop the link in the chat here to link you to our the home of the CSU Office of the Chancellor vendor portal. Per legislation, JOC has a fixed one-year term with no guaranteed minimum value. Contracts are issued from $0 up to $3 million. Public Contract Code has set a limit of $929,000 per JOC project, and contractors must be located within 50 miles of the campus inside the region they are bidding. So that last part, being located within 50 miles of a campus, so that means that you'd have to be in that region, 50 miles within that campus in that region to actually be able to bid on that. Just to kind of give you an idea, remember this, that no single job order can be awarded for more than $929,000. But for $929,000, there's a lot of work that can be completed. Hold on, wait, where am I? There I am. So per legislation, I got myself all mixed up here. So guys, we all know that change is inevitable. It's going to happen. But in JOC, we stick with the construction task catalog for these changes. The CTC has hundreds of thousands of items, and you can find the correct item if you just look for it. Almost all the permitting is completed by the CSU building official, and if any additional permits are needed, the contractor can request reimbursement. Liquidated damages will be assessed if the project exceeds the agreed upon completion days. So a lot of these spaces that we use, they're for classes, they're for students, they're for faculty, and we need to get in and out of these projects pretty quickly. Your average, Cynthia, what is the average length of a JOC project now? I think it's like 30, 45 days, right? Something like that?
Correct. Depending on the campus, it goes as far up as 40 days. Typically, they do turn around right at 30.
Great. Thank you so much. So DVB participation is required by the state, and incentives are given to contractors exceeding this requirement. There are also incentives for using small and non-small business as well. Please refer to our general conditions for more details. But here's just kind of an idea of who you can contact to learn more about the DVB participation. So here's a chart of the DVB incentives to kind of zoom in a little bit more to give you an idea that when you're bidding, 3% is the minimum requirement. That's what we require that each contractor participate in. But if you can prove to us that you can do more, there's actually incentives during the time of bidding. So all JOC contracts are competitively bid and broken down into 3 different factors. Make sure you consider your overhead costs when setting your factors and profit when entering these adjustment factors into the bid form. More times than not, and I can feel Lou staring at me right now, more times than not, we have issues with contractors doing too low of a bid factor. And although they will win the bid, it makes it difficult when they're trying to build their price proposals and trying to find that profit. All contracts are, all in all, all prospective bidders must be financially pre-qualified with the trustees. I'll drop this link into the chat to kind of so you can learn more about how the pre-qualification process works. Additionally, your firm will need to satisfy a supplementary pre-qualification that includes these items. If you don't provide this information, you will be disqualified. So just taking a quick look at this, the contractor must hold the same company name and a valid contractor's A and B license issued by the California board for at least 3 years. Bidders must demonstrate 3 concurrent projects over the last 3 years with a minimum value of $100,000. All projects listed must have a minimum value of $100,000. All projects listed must have at least 51% self-performed. I understand everybody uses subcontractors, but at least 51% of it has to be self-performed. So right now I'll hand it over to Cynthia to talk to you about the contract bid documents or the construction task catalog.
Actually, I was going to take this one.
Oh, great. Thanks.
So with the solicitation, you'll get the bid documents, and the front end documents will include the job order, the construction task catalog, and the technical specs, which are actually linked. So if it is in the construction task catalog, it will be a part of those technical specs, and they will be referenced by CSI number. And absolutely, you can use both to know what is included in the tasks and what is not included. Next slide. So you'll get JOC general and specialty technical specifications. They specify the quality of the materials, the workmanship, what's included, how it's to be done, order of procedure, the campus specifications, A specifications, JOC specifications will also be in those documents. Next. So the construction task catalog is a catalog of pre-priced construction tasks. And it is organized by the CSI Institute and is based on local labor and material and equipment costs, usually within a 25-mile radius of the campus in the specific catalogs for the regional contracts. They are based on Southern California prices within 25 miles of the Chancellor's office. So the south will be the Chancellor's office. The north is based on a central location in the north. I believe it is the Bay Area. So these represent the tasks that are going to be in your scope of work. They include the most current prevailing wage rates applied, and the prices are of direct construction costs only. So the prices in this catalog only include your direct costs, labor and materials of performing the task. They do not include your profit and overhead. They don't include mobilizations. They don't include any of your soft costs, any of your general conditions costs. Those are all to be a part of your factor. Go ahead for the next. So this is an example of a task. As you can see, this is curb, gutters, sidewalks, and driveways would be the CSI section. And it's all the way down into a concrete cast in place curb. As you can see, it contains a full description of the task. In this case, a 6x12 cast in place concrete curb. It includes modifiers for economies of scale that you can grab as you get to those quantities. It has section and task notes. It includes the labor and equipment for your location for installation. And it also, in most cases, includes a demolition price. And so what you're going to do is you're going to grab that unit of measure. In this case, if you look to the left, it's a linear foot. So this, in this example, is paying $7.18 a linear foot. Now, this is an old slide, so that price is not what is actually going today. They will be updated as at the time of the bid, but this is just an example of how that task is organized and structured for your use.
So as Lou was saying, the current CTC docs that we have were actually issued last month. They were issued in February. So those are going to be a lot more current values as well as wages.
So when you're building your proposal, say you're building a sidewalk, you'll have different items in here that you can grab, such as excavation, forms, placing rebar. Then when you're placing the concrete, you're going to get another task for pouring the concrete, and then also setting and curing and stripping forms. These are all included in building that sidewalk. If there's an assembly, it will include all these items, but these are all tasks that you can grab to get to the price on building this item. Go into the next. So first 6 pages of the catalog give you the rules of the game. And it basically, it's a part of your contract documents. It is your responsibility to review and understand this document, this portion of it. It will be a part of the bid documents. You'll see it in there when you open the task catalog. It gives you the rules of the game. Okay. It also makes sure you get paid for all appropriate tasks. And it tells you what's included in those tasks, such as equipment costs, material costs, labor costs, anything that is included. It also tells you what's not included. So go ahead to the next one. So the general rules. Okay, unit prices are for complete and in-place construction. So when you have a task in there, it's for everything that is required to put that task into and give you a finished product. The unit prices include labor, material, and equipment. So you do not add labor, like, for example, repointing a wall when you're when you're doing block work. Just the thing is, remember that labor and equipment are included in the task unless it is specified. Unit prices include the cost of delivery to the project site. So that all has to be included in your bid. Unloading and storage and handling. Delivery height is up to 2.5 stories. So if you have a building that is 2 stories, it includes delivery to the roof. If you have a building that's 3 stories, well, now you can use a task for delivering it to the 3rd floor. They include testing, calibration, balancing, etc. So if you're installing a new HVAC system, it would include balancing that system. It would include the testing of, torque testing, anything if you're installing any structural items. Unit prices include fasteners, bolts, anchors, adhesives, etc. for new work, for existing work, or work that is where an owner is furnishing the material, then you get to charge for those things. That's why those items are in the catalog. Unit prices for tasks such as windows, doors, frames, countertops, etc. They include sealant and caulking. So it is complete, installed at the site is what these tasks include. Go ahead to the next one. Okay, so this is another example of what you do not get paid for when you're bidding this. This is all part of your factor. Moving and returning the furniture in a room, if it's less than 55% of the floor area. For example, if you've got to paint a classroom and you've got to move the furniture around, that's part of your general conditions cost. That is included in your factors. So remember to allow for that. Protecting work in place. You are responsible for damage to any area, and protecting it is a part of your factor. Minor barricade signage. For example, putting up signs that somebody needs to stay out of an area. If you need to put up caution tape to keep people away from a crane swing or any of these items, that's all included. It also includes the portable toilets, field offices, field equipment. Those are all part of your general conditions. Those should be included in your factor. That's stuff that you have on every job, and you know that it's going to be there. So you know that that's going to be a part of this job. You're going to include it in your factor. It is not charged for in the task. Now, there are exceptions when you have to furnish toilets and offices for the CSU's use, then you would be able to charge that. Layout and site engineering for the work itself. They're not going to pay you to lay out on the site, to set your measurements, to set dimensions. That is all construction staking. That is all included with the task. Go on to the next. So your adjustment factor. This is a very important part when you're bidding a JOC project. They use your adjustment factor to determine the lowest bidder. It's also used to price individual work orders. So basically, your work order, you're trying to come up with a lump sum amount for the project. You're going to put together a number of tasks. You're going to take the unit price. So let's just take 100 square feet of concrete in doing sidewalks. You take that unit price, you multiply it by the 100 square feet, then you would multiply that by your adjustment factor, and that's the total for the task. Then you add up the number, all the tasks for the job, you get the total job order price, and that is your total compensation for that particular job order. Go on to the next one. So the adjustment factors include, but are not limited to, all overhead and profit for the company and taxes for the contractor and subcontractor. So remember, when you're pricing this, if you're going to sub everything out, you need to include your subcontractor's profit as well as your profit in that factor. It includes preparation and modification to proposals, office trailers, portable toilets, construction vehicles, and storage devices. Those are all part of your overhead and profit. It includes all personal protective equipment, daily and final cleanup, protection of all surfaces, and site supervision and management meetings. So again, review that first 6 pages. That's understanding the construction catalog, task catalog. That is the most important document you can review before you bid, because you're going to know the rules of the game. Let's go on to the next. So method to calculate factors. And we're not telling you how to do this. We're giving you examples in this situation. I can't tell you how to calculate your factor. I can just give you examples, and then you figure out how to put together your factor. So the best method is to take a historical project. You select something that you've completed, that you know the scope and you know all of your direct costs and overhead for that project. You take and you're going to put together the project from the CTC. You're not going to work to a price. You're going to work to a scope. So you're going to take and get your exact scope from that project and get every single task from the CTC, put that project together. Then you're going to take and you're going to add, once you get that total, you'll add your overhead and profit to that, and then calculate your adjustment factor. Let's go to the next. So a sample project. Let's just say you've got multiple projects that you're familiar with based on your trade: doors, hardware, interior lighting, anything, replace a boiler. Any of these can be a project that you can use, and you're going to do it as normal working hours apply. Let's go to the next. You're also going to need to figure in cost escalation. So you're responsible for changes in material and cost throughout the term of the project. In this case, it's a 1 year. So you plan for escalation. If the typical escalation in this year in the past year has been 7%, then I would plan for a 7% escalation when you put your factor together. That way, you're not going to be caught holding the bag. And this is material escalation. Remember, your labor escalation is based on Davis-Bacon and prevailing wage. And so the prevailing wage, your labor unions have scheduled raises throughout the year. And you'll be able to calculate that based on the labor unions and the scheduled wages. But you will have the current prevailing wage when you bid this contract will be included in the pricing. So just remember, plan for escalation, and you cannot come back for additional compensation once you have bid the contract. Next. So when you're doing historical costs, you're figuring out your quote. So your direct costs on the left, and these are just sample costs. This is by no means factual, just so you know. This is just a sample way of figuring out. I don't want anyone to use this as their bid. So if you're going to replace a boiler, let's say the boiler, in your direct cost from the work that you have performed, you take the cost from the CTC, it's $33,000, doors and hardware, lighting, plumbing, you come to a total of $66,344.12. Now, your direct cost that you have based on what you've done in the past, that same boiler comes out to 34, you've got all your costs there, and you look at the total, what gives you 66, this gives you 65. Okay, go to the next phase. So how you would look at this, you take your adjustment factor and your overhead and profit. So what you're going to do, there's a piece missing. You're going to add your overhead and profit to those prices. So the 64,000 times the adjustment factor times your project and overhead gives you overhead costs. So as you can see here, when you've got a 1.22, you would make 13,000 on that job. You might not on this. So there was a slide missing. Let's go to the next slide, Jeremy. It might be out of order. So when you're looking at this, it's going to tell you I'll go through a little scenario. What you want to do is you want to take that total price. So go back 2 slides, Jeremy. So on this, you're going to take this total price, that 66,344, and you see that it's a little more. You're going to take that 66,344. You're going to add in your overhead and profit, and then you're going to take and figure that out on your total cost with your overhead and profit, and then you're going to figure out your factor. So when you total up that from the direct cost of 66,344.12, and you've got your profit cost over here, you're going to figure out how much above that 66,344.12 you need to charge to get to your overhead and profit rate. So you're going to take the direct cost from the CTC, you're going to take what your cost should be, and you're going to figure out from that what your factor needs to be to get to your cost requirements. Please go to the next. So the adjustment factors, this is an example of putting it all together. When you bid a low factor, you're multiplying that factor, that direct cost, by your factor. So if you bid under a 1, you're going to get less than what you're supposed to get when your sub cost was 65. I don't know how you can make profit at under a 1. It doesn't make sense. That's why the factor is it's based on your direct costs. They're not exact. Your direct costs are going to vary depending on your economies of scale. But just remember, adding in labor and exaggerated quantities is not accepted. So you can't build to a price. You have to get to your price by using the factor. Let's go to the next. So here's the bid form, normal working hours. When they bid this out, you're going to be entering 2 different line items. You're going to have a normal working hours line item and another normal working hours line item. So there's a weighting to each of these scores. 80% is on normal working hours, 15% is on other than normal working hours, and 5% on premium hours. So to multiply those weightings to come up with your cumulative factor. Let's go to the next. So there is a risk of low adjustment factors. And this is where it leads to fighting an argument in the proposal review process, because we realize that you are trying to get to a price, but the way JOC works is that you get paid for exactly what you're doing. You cannot work to a price. You have to work to a scope. This is why you need to build your proposals and create a factor that you can perform to, because what happens is you end up fighting over unsupportable tasks, exaggerated quantities, because you're working to a number. It leads to delays in the work order development process, and it takes longer to review proposals. What we're trying to get here, when we have a good factor, instead of an adversarial relationship, which is going to reduce your volume of work and shorten the contract, it's also going to give you, if you have a good factor, it's going to create a partnership. It's going to create a collaboration between you and the campus, and also a desire for them to use you more. So there's no second chance to improve your margin. Let's go to the next. So typically what we find, factors in the range, you're going to see the two control lines there. Factors in the lower range, they may not cover your overhead and profit. In some cases, you may think they will. And if that's the case, if it does, that is absolutely fine. We're not telling you what to bid, but this is what historically we found, that factors in the range below that 1.17 line, a lot of times they only cover the costs, especially if you're subbing the work out. And factors in the range from the 1.18 to the 1.23 line, they may cover your costs in the event you're self-performing. and subbing out minimal. So anything above the 1.2, we find that those factors in that range tend to cover all costs. It's not typical. This is just historical data, and we found from research, but this is what happens. And when you bid under that one and under that 1.17, you do take a chance that if you're not self-performing, that you're going to not cover your cost, your requirement for overhead and profit. So don't forget, lowest composite score for a responsible bidder is determined by the lowest bidder. Your factor must be inclusive of preparing incidental drawings and sketches, justifying quantity calculations in the job order, explaining the detail of the work in the tasks, every bit of that, preparing proposals for some projects that might be canceled. There are times you will be working on a project, you will be preparing a proposal, and the funding gets moved. They have to cancel the project. It happens. Price margins on CTC tasks will vary, but some projects are more profitable than others. So remember, if you're doing a project, you may have on one project that you can't reach your profit margin on drywall, but you're reaching your profit margin on the HVAC equipment. Well, it's the total of everything. It's not that saying that you're going to make money on absolutely every task. It's saying that when you get over, if you bid the right factor, you'll make money on the contract overall. So just remember, some projects are more profitable than others. Maintaining a fully functioning local office is required. Supplying full-time on-site supervision is required. And you must hold the required licenses, bonding, and DIR registry. All labor is paid at prevailing wage. That's probably one of the most important, is that you're going to be turning in certified payroll, and your 51% self-performance is verified through that certified payroll. Next.
Lou, thank you so much. You got through a lot of information there. And I just want to tell folks, great questions in the chat box here. I'm going to try to get to all of them before we wrap up phase 3 of our presentation. But if we don't make it there, there'll be a form that you can complete at the end. If you've got more questions, we can answer them then. So yes, at CSU, we do have expectations. The student, staff, and faculty, and even yours truly, are very particular about a contractor's attention to detail. So here are some do's and don'ts. Please read the general conditions, adhere to safety requirements, check when permits are needed for your projects, read the plans and specs that are given to you, and moreover, provide daily reports. This protects not only the contractor, but the campus as well. How many guys were on site, how many trucks they had, so on and so forth. And please don't do this. This is actually from one of my campuses that a JOC contractor did this. And what do you guys think about this? Does anybody see anything wrong? Lou's just laughing.
Great to me. And there's actually an animation on this slide.
There are. Yeah. I got a wow over here. Yeah, I don't see the animation, but that's okay.
You got to click one more time.
Oh, look at that.
Don't do this.
Please don't do that. Don't do that at all.
The main thing here is that we make sure that we adhere to all safety requirements, and that we ensure that there are permits on all projects that will require permits. It is a general contractor's responsibility to operate within the laws. And if you're performing work without a permit, regardless of whether the campus has instructed you to do so, if it requires a permit, you have to ensure that there's a permit. That is part of your requirements.
So here's a look at our some highlights from our general conditions. These are all very important to win work at the CSU: bidding, award, and execution of contract, conduct of work, claims and damages, and more importantly, the most important is payment and completion. So just about every year we update the JOC general conditions. We updated them just now in 2023, and we updated them last year. So if you are a JOC contractor and you've been in the system before, please reread them. I literally have the shortest general conditions. I think it's 60 pages. and you can read it pretty fast. But please make yourself knowledgeable. So this year we included a reference to military and veterans code and the consequences if their requirements are not met. So again, please read the general conditions and all the changes that have been made. So there's many different training opportunities. Cynthia, I'm going to use you on this one too. So we encourage you to visit the CPDC YouTube channel to learn more about JOC, and I'll drop that YouTube link in the chat. Cynthia, you want to tell them about Gordian University?
Absolutely. So we do have a self-paced e-learning website that all of our contractors have access to. And it's really, really great. It helps for those of you who need the little extra time maybe to learn. And it also comes at any time. It's available to you through the entire life cycle of the contract. I highly, highly recommend it to all of our contractors. It is self-paced, so you can pause, go back to it, redo it as many times as you want to, but it is an available resource to all of our contractors that I highly recommend everybody not only know about it, but go through it themselves, because there's a lot of really great tools in there.
Awesome. And it's actually kind of fun. Do you get a certificate at the end when you complete your work, or no?
I believe that's something that's still underway. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Leo. That is something that we were working towards, but I'm not sure if it's gone live yet. But you do it'll give you like a snippet showing like this was completed already that you can screenshot for the time being.
Yeah, we've talked about the possibility of providing a PDF certificate that will be emailed to you. Yes.
I know the campuses were asking because the campuses love getting certificates for whatever they do.
We can make that happen.
I told them I could make it happen on PDF. It would be that hard. So we're up at the questions and answers portion. We got a lot of great questions in the chat here. Cynthia, let's scroll through them and see if we can answer them here on the fly.
Absolutely. And I think I've been trying to answer as many of them as I can as we've been going. I apologize if I miss any. I'll just quickly answer some of these out loud, or maybe those in the conversation here can answer those if I miss them. Let's see here. Starting from the top, will there be a recording that we can watch later as well for review?
Yes, there will be. So it's going to be posted in that YouTube link that I just sent you. It says CPDC YouTube site. So in there right now, you'll find all the JOC training videos that we've already done. And then hopefully this afternoon, after I get done editing it, I will put this video up as well. So again, you'll be able to view this. So go to that CPDC YouTube site and just bookmark that. And I think if you follow the site, it'll let you know when I put on new videos as well.
Awesome.
Yep.
There was another question. We have found in the past that the Gordian book is out of date for technology items, or doesn't include particular models and brands that are needed for that particular CSU. Is there any effort being made to make technology hardware compliant with various campus requirements? So that's a great question. Our books are updated annually, which was my response. We do work with the campuses prior to their bid to ask if there are jobs that they know coming up on the horizon, specifically those related to technology. If it is something that needs to be added to the book, then we add it at that time. We do also have other measures in place, such as our or equals rule, in case that there isn't the specific make and model of a particular item, but there's something relative to the scope, then they can use that in equivalent in value. And then we do also have our non-pre-priced tasks, which are meant to be the exception and not the rule, but account for any variances or discrepancies in the book.
So, and some of the things, thing that I want to put out to the contractors and to the campuses as well is if there are items that you're finding that aren't in the catalog, or that the technology's out of date and we need to update it, please send us those items, because believe it or not, there's 275,000 tasks in that catalog. And if something's outdated and we haven't had a chance to look at it that year, all we're doing is updating based on pricing.
Yeah.
Then we need to have that information so we can get that new technology and those new items in the catalog for the next go around.
Yep.
Correct. Are subcontractors required to pre-qualify? No, only you as the main contractor will go through the pre-qualification at the time of bid. What about specialty contracts such as electrical? Do you need an A and B to bid to A prime on an electrical JOC? So campuses do issue out specialty JOCs. If you're bidding out a specialty, you're only required to have that specialty licensing unless the bid specifies otherwise, but it'll all be stipulated in that bid. But we do a lot of specialty JOCs, both on an individual campus level and on a regional JOC level, which goes through the Chancellor's office that Jeremy manages. Our task prices updated according to price increase. So I can kind of answer that. So pricing is updated at the time of bid annually. If there's a steep influx that's above like the 25% threshold that we have, the campuses do have measures in place to make sure that you're paid accordingly. And again, our books are updated annually though to account for those. Now, what I will say is always make sure that you account for the ebb and flow in pricing in your adjustment factor. Give yourself enough of a cushion there to make sure that you're covering yourself, right? You want to bid a number that's going to be comfortable for you, that isn't just competitive. Is there a separate mechanical JOC project? Yes, there are several mechanical contracts that are available to you, both on the individual campus level and through the regional JOC. Let's see the other question we had. Is job duration influenced by the current long lead time? Those will vary from job to job. You'll discuss that with your project manager. For equipment costs, are they calculated as if the contractor rents out the equipment or if the equipment is owned? Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I answered that one. Let's see. For equipment costs, are they calculated as if the contractor rents the equipment or if the equipment is owned? It'll depend on the line item, right, Lou? The line item will stipulate whether if it's self-owned or not. Go ahead.
The line items do include equipment costs. They are included as if the contractor was renting the equipment. So they're based on rental rates and the hourly production of that equipment. To get to that equipment cost per unit of measure. For example, for grading, it includes the spread. For asphalt, it includes the spreader, but it includes renting it for that unit of measure. So if you're spreading by the ton, it will include the cost to spread per ton on the rental rate. So basically, if you can spread 10 tons an hour, it's going to tell you, okay, it's going to take that hourly rate for that machine and divide it by 10 to get to that unit of measure. That's just a very simplified version and, just an example. But it is a rental rate. It is included. And remember that those aren't negotiable. That rental rate is based at the time of the bid at the time of the catalog was produced. So when you bid, if you've got a catalog that was produced in February and you're bidding in March, it's based on February pricing. So remember that.
All right, thanks, Lou. Who's the contact for design FFE? Kevin actually jumped in and answered this one, so thank you. It'll vary based on the campus. They'll contact, we will collect contact info at the end of the presentation so that the campus have access to your information. Is it mandatory for subcontractors to also attend a joint scope meeting? No, it's not mandatory. Yes, we highly, highly recommend that you bring on your subs. It really helps address a lot of these questions on the front end rather than the back end once you've changed subcontractors a couple times. So know who your subs are, have a couple on deck that are reliable guys that you'll be using for the job. The mechanical JOC be listed through Planet Bids as well. Yes, they will be listed through Planet Bids as well. With permits being as incurred and no markup, will we be able to charge for labor time in order to perform inspections? Let's see here. I lost that one.
So I think I responded to this one, and that was the most have their own inspector of record. So correct. No, we most likely, I know there's an inspection line item in there, Lou, but it's rarely used.
Yeah, the inspection line item is only for specialty inspections, like if you're having if the contractor has to pay a welding inspector to come out, a bolt inspector to come out for torque contention,
brake strengths, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you'd have to talk to your own project manager about that because there'd be some questioning on that the contractor actually hired those inspection services on their own.
Mm-hmm. So. Thank you, guys. Our firm provides material testing and inspection and geotechnical services. We are not a contractor, so we do not have a contractor's license. It is not required for our services. Will the scope of service / tasks be included in this catalog? If not, how does CSU hire for this scope? That's a great question. So if anybody wants to jump in here. Otherwise, basically, it'll depend on the type of contract that's in place at the campus. Probably this is going to be like a general license contract under which they're going to have some sort of a job that pertains to this particular scope. Our books are very all-encompassing, so we try to make sure that we account for these kinds of scopes within our book. However, again, this is a question that will be answered on the front end at the time of bid. Do you have any specialty jobs coming up that require additional lines that we need to account for in our book? But that'll be hired on by the contractor at the time. So you would be a sub of the main.
So in most geotechnical investigations and things such as that are performed by the campus ahead of the time of the bid of the project.
Bear in mind, though, as Jeremy and Kevin mentioned earlier, that all of your information will be collected and handed off to the campuses as well. So they'll have you guys as a resource to reach out.
Yeah, and please stay until after the questions, and I'm going to actually walk through that form and send out the link. So if you hang on this call, we'll go through that link in a minute.
Yeah, and we're just about done here. Can we get a copy of the slides? I believe that what was mentioned is that these are going to be posted online, right? The whole slideshow is going to be presented.
Sure,
online.
and actually, if they fill out that form in the end that Kevin's going to show them, I can send you the slide deck. I can even send you a link to the YouTube as well. So just put your information in there.
Who do we reach out to if we've been awarded a JOC? Most likely is you've been in if you've been awarded a JOC, you've been in communication with that campus's contracts team. They'll connect you with their campus project managers, who will then just know to assign you work. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to your account managers. If you don't know who your designated account manager is for your campus, just notate down below in the chat where you were awarded at, and we'd be happy to connect you to the right people so that you know when you can receive work.
For sure. And if it's regional, it's most likely me, but it could be a campus as well. But
what has the history of factors presented and been awarded? I think we showed a slide on that. Are there any hazmat packages for this bid? The regional JOC does have hazmat contracts that do get awarded out. So that it is a specialty contract that goes out to bid. Yes.
So that'll most likely be this summer, 2023. I'll put those back out.
Correct. Another question, can we pre-qualify ahead of time, or do we need to wait for an invitation to post? Oh, that's a good question. That one's for you, Jeremy.
I think that's Terry. Terry, you answered this one. You pre-qualify at the time of bid, but we might actually be switching that up to where contractors can come in and pre-qualify and just be ready to bid whenever.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Are there go ahead.
But I encourage contractors to get their financial pre-qualification in place prior, because that's something that's done any time of the year and they can keep it current, in which that's wise to do. So they don't have to scramble with all the items for that in addition to the supplemental.
Perfect. Thanks, Terry. Are there typically any fire suppression, inspection, maintenance, testing? Yes, depending on the scope of work, there will definitely be inspections and testing that happens. And ideally, if they don't, please reach out to your account manager and project manager and pose the question. Thank you. For pre-qualification, we need to submit 202 CPA I think this question got cut off. Review.
I know what they're referring to, because the financial pre-qualification, the financial needs to be 15 months old or less. And a lot of firms, their year end is December year end, and their financial typically, most will be available by the time they expire, because we have 15 months of term for pre-qualification. So most would expire 15 months out from the date of the financials. So for those that had a financial of 2021 year end December, they expire March 31st. However, some firms have issues with having their CPA reviewed or audited financial by that time. So what we do is we will use their most recent financial. So in this case, the year end December 2021, even though it would be set to expire March 31st, we can give an extension to maximum 3 months. And if they don't have their updated 2022 financial by then, there's not much we can do beyond that. But I encourage, once again, people to go ahead, submit their application, and we'll address any deficiency and see if we can work around it.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. And it looks like someone has their hands up. Yasmin on the call.
Yes, hi, this is Keenan with Horizons Construction.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you. What's up?
Okay, just a quick question. How many contracts are you guys planning to award?
Last year we awarded 26. I suspect it'll be close to that this year. So that's just regional. Campuses have their own contracts as well.
Okay, now, are you bidding specialty contracts and you bidding general contracts, right?
Correct. We're actually bidding general right now, and then I just advertised for specialty earlier this week. So
Now, what's the specialties? Can you please give us a brief item?
Roofing just bid on Monday, or I just advertised for roofing on Monday. I'm looking to put together packages for electrical, most likely mechanical again, although it hasn't been used very much. Hazmat and paving contracts later this year.
So paving will be by itself, and the hazmat, can the demo contractor bid it, or it has to be hazmat? You have to have a hazmat license?
There's a lot of hoops that you got to jump through to be a hazmat. But when I put out the bid this summer, stay tuned to Plant Bids. When I put out the bid, you can actually see all the requirements for the hazmat contractor. And it's actually, if you look at our JOC general conditions, a lot of the requirements are there too.
Okay, and just the last question is, for the general, you have engineering by itself and building by itself, or is building and engineering together? Like, do you have A license bids and B license bids, or it's just general?
I believe it's A and B. I'd have to.
So it's A and B together, or are separate like contracts? Like is engineering
together?
A and B together. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome question, guys. Let's see here. Do we want to do a couple more? I know we're coming close to the hour here. Let me just maybe do one more.
Yeah, can you do Ken Franks? Because he's been waiting.
Sure. Let's see. Ken Franks.
I think he's still here.
Ken Frank. Oh, okay. Here we go. How is it possible to have the bids require more qualification for systems are specialized, i.e., if a Chevy is used, a technician must be trained on Chevrolet. How is it possible to have the bids require more qualification for systems?
I'm not sure I understand that one.
I'm not sure either.
Kevin? You got anything on that one or no?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's relative, or possibly how does the book rate reflect the different qualifications? And again, there's always going to be some outliers potentially, and then those just need to be discussed on a case by case basis if there's something that's very unique. Because we will get that on control systems, fire alarm systems, and those just need to be discussed on a case by case basis.
Is Ken on the call who can maybe clarify on this question?
Yes, I am. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we find a lot of times, for example, there are 400 types of access control systems on the market. We service and support half a dozen of them. If you have a particular system and it's not specified that the technician must be trained or certified on that system, we find that often contractors come in and basically take the fire hose, turn it 90 degrees to the right, and that's what you get in our world of technology. Remember the slide with the fire hose at 90 degrees?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Does that make more sense?
Kind of, Kevin?
Yeah. So, and that's why a lot of the JOC projects try to do more repetitive maintenance work, but a lot of campuses will do access controls and other stuff similar.
Right.
So it is important, and hopefully the campus is paying attention to that when they're putting together the projects, that the scope of work is requiring the certifications for those, so they're not messing with the systems. But yeah, we get that a lot with roofing, making sure we have people certified to maintain the warranty to do work on like roofing systems, access control, fire alarm, and others. But yeah, we do have that happen where we'll have somebody come in and say they know what they're doing, and if it's not not supervised correctly, that can end up with some unideal technology scenarios.
Right.
But that's why it's ideal that we're bringing in the subcontractors and sometimes the suppliers or vendors into those joint scope meetings, so that we can put all that together at the time we're determining the price, so that we have adequate hours and devices that are being priced to appropriately implement into the system.
Awesome. The next question that Ken had was, could you expand upon the JOC pricing and how adjustments are made due to changing prices in the market? Jobs walked 3 months ago have often gone up 3 to 7% in the last 2 years. So a couple of things here. We do have, again, measures in place if the pricing does fluctuate significantly. What we do always say is account for a cost variance in your adjustment factor when you're going out to bid. Make sure that you account for that ebb and flow in your adjustment factor. The book is the book. So make sure that your factor accounts for those variances that in cost that might come into play over the course of the next couple months. Something like 3 to 7% is normal. It'll ebb and it'll flow, right? Because the campus isn't expecting a credit back when the prices decrease, right? Account for that when it increases is what I'll say.
And Ken, on this one, if it's like egregious, like if copper completely goes out of control next month, what I tell project managers is to ask their contractors, show me the money, show me your vendor invoice. Hopefully it's not from Home Depot, but show me that your warehouse is now how much ever it is, a cubic yard or a linear foot, like just show us and we can make it work, right? We just want to, we get audited on all of these projects because we're state funded, and we have to show them why we got to this amount on some of these. So that'd be my only requirement, is that if it's an egregious increase, just show us the money, show us how you got there.
Yep. Basically, you would show the cost of that material at the time of the bid, and then the cost of material now, and show that it increased that egregious amount.
Right. Next question on here. Does JOC allow for security access control, fire, and video systems? I think Kevin already kind of answered this one, right? Yep. Completion days are greatly affected with channel delivery issues on some products. How does JOC contend with that? So if there's long lead times on materials, if completion days do extend, we do have time extensions. That'll be on a job by job cadence, and that'll be something that you discuss with your project manager to make sure that you account for those variables. And if we need to issue out a time extension, then you work through that with your project manager. Can this be done on a C contractor's license? I think it'll depend on the contract that you're going out to bid. Typically, when you go out to bid for that specific contract, it'll stipulate what licensing is required for it. And how does the process allow for variation due to new discoveries in the construction process? Okay, so like new discoveries, those we account for those via supplementals. If there's a change in the scope after we've issued out this NTP and construction has begun, what we'll do is we'll issue out a supplemental. You might know it as a change order, but we're just adding to the scope or modifying the scope to account for those changes. And it'll be processed the same as any other job order, as I mentioned before. Cool. It looks like we have one last question that we'll take from NKS Mechanical, because I know we're over on our time here.
Hi, thank you. Go back to Lewis's boiler. For example, a boiler pricing is set in your book for $65,000, I believe it was. What, isn't it normally? For this?
No. The pricing that I showed in that slide is not what the pricing is right now. That was just an example to show it, and it's not. There's so many different boilers in the book. Whatever the pricing in the book is, you would adjust your factor to adjust to accommodate that pricing in the book.
That's if you were, let me finish my question so I could. So the pricing in the book, let's say this year's book, is $65,000 for so many BTU boiler.
Okay.
And, I go to my vendor, and my vendor's pricing has gone up, and I've experienced this in 3 of my projects, recent projects. What do you do then? His that goes up 10% for air handling units, boilers, chillers, all kinds of equipment. So how your book shows $65,000. but I can get it for 65. I can only get it for, let's say, $75,000, $85,000.
Again, that's in the egregious elevation in prices that we were just talking about. They have controls in place to where we can take, if your price has gone up over 25% from the time you bid the contract, is what's in the general conditions right now, you can actually non-pre-price that material. Anything below that has to be allowed in your factor, because you're allowing for those increases in your factor up to that 25%. But once it goes past that, then they can make allowances to non-pre-price that material only, and you do the labor through the catalog.
So you want us to include 25% over the current prices?
Jeremy, you want to take that? That's your choice.
Yes.
So so what I would do is I would extrapolate escalation and put that through the midpoint of the contract, just like you would for a construction project, and put that as the average that I'm using to put together my price based on whatever my domain is. And that's where I would feel comfortable putting in a bid factor, just like I would on applying escalation to a project. And then generally with our legislation and our contract values, hopefully we're not doing significant projects where we're actually buying and installing equipment through JOC. Should be more of a repair / repetitive work. So we shouldn't have too many major equipment purchases through JOC. But again, if I were bid, I would apply the estimated escalation through at least the midpoint, and then use that to extrapolate out to my bid factor.
Awesome. And there are a bunch of more questions on here. What we'll do is we'll take out the time and answer these, and we'll issue these out when we share the remainder of the slide deck and the presentation. Kevin, do you want to show how to use that sheet?
Yeah. So the link I just sent out, which I'll drop in the chat again, will take you just to this form. And basically, we're just looking for, if you're interested in working at one or more of the campuses, regardless of what your service is. So I know we've got a wide variety of people on this call. Put in your company name. You can select one or more of these services. We have Contractor in here with just Contractor and with JOC. So if you're interested in being contacted and are interested in doing JOC work, make sure to select these. Again, you don't have to fill this out to be able to do JOC. Everyone's going to have to bid through Planet Bids anyways. But this way we can include you on any information, or we can let campuses know that you're interested in doing JOC at their campus. And then if they want to reach out or do any videos like this, they can do those as well. We also have a list of campuses. So if you're interested in doing work specific for one or more campuses, depending on what your specific service is, list those or select those. You can select them all if you want. And then your contact info. And that way us or the campuses can reach out to you if we have a need for your service or product. And then if you have any professional credentials or DVB, SBE that you'll fill in here, again, they're not required. And then if you want to submit any information or documentation to us, you can just simply select you want to add some attachments, and then you can drag and drop any marketing files, contact information, whatever you want here. And then if campuses want to filter by, hey, who will provide FF&E to my campus, they'll have your contact information, they'll have anything you uploaded, and then they can reach out if they're doing some sort of procurement or solicitation. So that's it. And I'll just drop this link in again so it's fresh in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Gordian, for co-hosting with me. Kevin, thanks for doing the smart sheet. And everybody that attended, we do look forward to working with new contractors at Cal State University Office of the Chancellor. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.